Oke, baik Bapak dan Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, to start in webinars. Yeah, this is because usually before webinar, I would like to show all your participants Indonesia Raya songs. So please pay your attentions. Indonesia Raya. Okay, thank you for your attentions. Okay, Bapak dan Ibu, before webinar, my colleague will be delivers some rules in webinars. Please, Ms. Konita.
Okay, thank you, Pak Risa. Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to read for all of you the rules for today's webinar. The first rule is Zoom access will be open 5 minutes before the webinar starts. Second, please use your actual name on your ID and not institution or electronic product name. Third, for all participants, please wear a proper outfit and behave kindly during the webinar. For all participants, please use fifth webinar instrument virtual background that we've sent with setting video camera original ratio. Fifth, all participants need to turn off the microphone or set to mute during the webinar, except for those who are allowed to speak in a question and answer session. Rules number 6. For participants who have some questions, please don't hesitate to drop your questions in chat column by typing ask first, then your name and institution, then followed by your question. 7th, to all participants, please fill out the list of attendees in the link that we will inform later. Number 8, A certificate will be provided for participants who join in from start until the end of the webinar. Hence, participants who do not fill out the Google Forms, register, and list of attendees will not be given an A certificate. The last one, that's all for fifth webinar instruments rule. Thank you. Hope you are all having a meaningful webinar. Thank you, Pak Risa.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Anita. I hope all participants obey this rule, these regulations. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next session is a presentations will be delivered by Ms. Mei Shin. Before Ms. Mei Shin presents, the theme in this fifth webinars, a quick and easy Mercury Analysis by MA-3 Solo. Yeah, this is briefly curriculum vitae. Ms. Mei Shin. She is a sales manager Nippon Instrument Corporations, and then academics degree of Bachelors of Science, especially applied chemistry from Universiti of Malaya. Okay, Miss Mei Shin. Mei Shin in Japanese, Mei is a name and Shin is new. So Mei Shin, new name, right?
Yes, something like this.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Miss Mei Shin. Okay, time is yours.
Thank you.
Yeah, up to you. And then after your presentation, we open question and answers. Okay, please.
Thank you.
Ms.
Thank you.
Mei Shin.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this webinar. Good morning to especially to Dr. Endang Susilowati and also Dr. Risa. It is my honor to share some information that I have with you today, and our theme will be this quick and easy Mercury analysis. So let me share my screen here.
Okay, please.
All right, so can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
All right. So like what Pak Risa has shared just now, my name is Mei Shin. Nama saya Mei Shin. I can't speak Bahasa Indonesia very well, but I can understand a little bit. So if you have questions that you would like to ask in Bahasa Indonesia, feel free. My distributors are also in this webinar that will help me to translate if necessary. So I come from Nippon Instruments Corporation. So when people hear about Nippon, they always think of Nippon Paint. But actually, we have nothing to do with Nippon Paint. Basically, Nippon means Japan. And we are actually a manufacturer of a mercury analyzer based in Osaka, Japan for more than 40 years. So that is why our name, Nippon Instruments Corporation, right? So these are some of the topics that I'll be sharing with you today. The first topic that we will go through will be environmental issues in Japan, all right? So to understand deeply about this Japanese awareness, first of all, we would like to go through with you some of the environmental issues that they experience. And after that, I would also like to share some Minamata Convention under this initiative of United Nations. Thirdly, we will understand about mercury and its danger throughout human civilization. And of course, to discuss existing mercury analysis technique and also its challenges. And after that, we will also go into direct combustion technique by using MA-3 Solo and also its application in our laboratory. And finally, I would also like to share with you Minamata disease story. All right, so let's begin. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, you can let me know at the end of it, or you can also put it down in the chat room and I'll come back to you later. So environmental issues in Japan. For Japanese, we always know that they have naturally very high awareness about mercury analysis and also their environmental issues. And because in Japan, there are actually 4 kogaibyo. Kogaibyo means pollution disease that is actually caused by these man anthropogenic activities from the 1950s to the 70s. So the first kogaibyo is actually Minamata disease, happened in 1956 due to the consumption of contaminated fish by this methyl mercury. A lot of people died during this disease, but human never really learn lessons or history very well. Not much precautions are taken that time. And the next kogaibyo happened in the area called Niigata. Niigata is an area that is actually quite far away from Minamata. And the same thing happened because no one really has the awareness and also the knowledge to handle this problem. The third one will be Itai-Itai disease, happened in 1968. Itai-Itai disease is due to heavy metal poisoning as well, which is cadmium contaminated rice. These people, they consume cadmium polluted rice, and a lot of people died because of this cadmium poisoning as well. And the last one in this 4 kogaibyo will be Yokkaichi asthma disease, happened in the 1970s. This is due to the respiratory disease from the polluted environmental air with the sulfur dioxide and also the nitrous oxide due to the growing industrial activities in Japan that time. So in these 4 diseases, Japanese are naturally very aware about the environment and they learn, and also they have a lot of know-how into how to handle all the environmental issues. And today we will focus on this mercury analysis. So to focus on this mercury analysis, I would like to help you to understand more about mercury and its danger. So like what we discussed just now, Minamata disease and also Niigata Minamata disease happened in the 1950s and also the 1960s. And these people, they suffered a terrible life before precautions and also the government take action. It's unlike today, we have COVID-19. Our government in different countries also taking quite a fast response compared to last time. In this Minamata disease, more than 10 years, the government did not do anything for the patients and also the victims in this area. And that is why they suffered a terrible life. And also they have a difficulty in speaking. They have difficulty in walking. And also they have terrible convulsions before they die. This mercury poisoning outbreak happened in this area called Minamata. The first patient died in 1956, but that time, nobody know what is happening. But after that, after 10 to 12 years later, it is discovered that the reason of Minamata disease is due to the discharge of methyl mercury by the factory called Chiso Coorporation. Chiso Coorporation is a very big company that they provide a lot of job opportunities to the local people. For example, it will be as big as, for example, Pertamina, and also, for example, Petronas in Malaysia. So these companies, they are very big. But at that time, nobody can take any actions because nobody know why. And after all the understandings, it eventually lead to an establishment of Minamata Convention under the United Nations to come together from all countries, sit down, discuss how to prevent this disease from happening again. And just to share with you, recently I have went to Japan in early February. I have talked to this victim in Minamata. He is Nakamoto-san. Nakamoto-san is actually a certified victim of Minamata disease, and he is still alive, and he is having difficulty to take this photograph with me. But his mission every day is to share his story with all the visitors that is coming to the Minamata Museum, so that everyone in the new generation can learn how to prevent this Minamata disease from happening again. I will share more about the Minamata disease story at the end of the slides. So Minamata Convention, under the initiative of United Nations and Environmental Program, UNEP, is to dedicate all the efforts to make Mercury history. So this is the tagline that you can see here, make Mercury history. So in this Minamata Convention, basically is to rally all the different parties from different countries, come down together and discuss how we can make Mercury history in our own country respectively. And up to date, there are 123 ratifications actually from all the countries that actually ratified and committed to reduce and eventually eliminate mercury in their own country. And thankfully, Indonesia is one of the countries that ratified back in 2017, and they have committed to put mercury into a stop. But of course, it is not an overnight issue. That is why continuous education and sharing are necessary to increase awareness among the people in Indonesia. So the first objective in this convention treaty is to protect the human health and environment from anthropogenic emissions and the release of mercury and mercury compounds to the environment. There are altogether 35 articles in this convention treaty, but I would like to bring your attention to this research and development monitoring article 19. This is very relevant to researchers, educations, and the people that is in the laboratory because it talks about, first thing, all the responsible subject will be all the parties involved in the ratifications. And the first thing that talk about under this article is the inventories of the use and consumption of mercury-related compounds. In a simple form, it means we have to make sure all the usage of mercury are documented properly, all the buying and selling, all the sources and the destination of mercury should be recorded properly so that we can trace where are the mercuries are coming from and where it will be ended at. So the second things will be the assessment of impact on human health and environment. That means the party that ratify in the treaty, they should have a better assessment on the local impact of this mercury impact on local human health and also environment. The third thing will be the responsible parties should also have harmonized methodologies for all the activities that is being taken under this treaty in their own respective country. So there are a lot of efforts that actually have to be done by the government who ratified this convention treaty, because there are a lot of anthropogenic sources that will affect our environment and human health. For example, coal-fired power plants. Coal-fired power plants is a lot of countries that are using coal to burn coal and to generate electricity to the people around them and to provide this electricity. And not only that, a lot of these industry like cement, smelters, oil and gas, they have a lot of stacks. And these stacks actually will emit a lot of mercury into the ambient air because they are burning fossils, they are burning a lot of raw mats in order to generate power and in order to process in their plant. So that is why it is one of the biggest anthropogenic source to the ambient air. And third example will be the industrial waste. Industrial, normally they will discharge like Coorporation back in 1960 in Japan. They discharge a lot of solid waste, liquid waste into the nearby water bodies. And it will directly affect our environment if we do not take action against it. It will affect our water, it will affect our soil, it will affect our ambient air. And our human health are directly related to the environment, the quality of our environment. If our environment is good, the food will be good. The ambient air quality will be good. But if let's say the environment are all affected by the anthropogenic sources, or our food will not be as healthy, they will contain high mercury, and the air will also affect our human health due to a long-term exposure. So what is mercury? I'm not sure everyone's background here, but just let me go through some very basic informations of mercury. Mercury is one of the heavy metal that is under this periodic table. But this heavy metal is a very strange heavy metal. It exists as a liquid at room temperature, and it's unlike other heavy metal. All the other heavy metal exists as solid at room temperature. So in this mercury, it also has a relatively low boiling point and relatively high vapor pressure. Their boiling point is about 357 degrees Celsius, and the vapor pressure is relatively higher compared to other heavy metal. That means it can evaporate much easier compared to other heavy metal. So it is also very important to distinguish between the natural source of mercury and also the anthropogenic source of mercury. Natural source, for example, volcano activities, for example, earthquake, it is something that we can't do anything about, but just to monitor the quality of the ambient air. But the anthropogenic source is something that we can control, we can reduce, and we can eliminate at the end of it. So you'll be surprised that actually mercury has a lot of usage throughout our human civilization. It is reported that mercury is used in all the ointments back in the Greek civilization, and also reported to be used as medicine to treat depression back in the Cold War in America. And recently, these archaeologists also found a pool of mercury under this tomb in Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan is not mistaken, where they actually have a tomb, and there is a pool of mercury that is buried together with this emperor. And these people, they believe mercury is cecai ajaib. It's like a magical liquid. So they actually buried with it for their use in the afterworld. And the more famous usage is actually by the late emperor of in China called Shi Huangdi, and he believed mercury can bring immortality to him, which I think it doesn't really work well since he doesn't come back anymore. And also mercury is also mined as a cinnabar. This cinnabar, they are very famous in using for paint in the wall and also for decoration purpose. So you'll be surprised that actually mercury are with human for a really, really long time, but no one has bothered to understand because it has not bring an immediate threat to them yet. And recent findings is actually a very high amount of mercury in Tibet. When it comes to Tibet, Tibet is a place in China where it is very inland, and it has a very high ground from the sea level. So it is considered the untouched and also unpolluted area in China. So we always thought that, you know, Tibet, there's no industries going on, they should be very clean and no mercury. But to my surprise, actually in 2015, a total of 3,600 kg of mercury was released from the human body into the municipal sewage in Tibet. Because according to their findings, Tibetans make use of mercury in their traditional medicine for thousands of years to treat their different diseases. And that is why the consumption of mercury in Tibetan history is really long, and it leads to high discharge of mercury into the terrestrial ecosystem. And if let's say the mercury is in ecosystem, it will eventually go back to the environment, to our food, and to our body. Other mercury poisoning also reported in Iraq and also USA, where actually Iraq, there is an incident, there is a methyl mercury fungicide wrongly distributed to the village, and these villagers, they died, about 600 of them died because of this Minamata disease symptoms, unfortunately. And also there is a researcher come in contact with methyl mercury during one of her work, and 5 months later, she exhibited Minamata disease symptom and passed away. So that is why mercury is not something that we should take lightly about, because it has caused so many deaths throughout the history, and we should actually learn from the history and take necessary precautions about it. But these artisanal and small-scale gold mining are still rapidly and actively happening all around the world. Artisanal and small-scale gold mining basically are gold mining activities that are normally run by these local, usually happen to a very poor group of local people, where they help to extract the gold ores. And when they want to extract gold ores, they use a pure elemental mercury, because that is the fastest, cheapest, and the most practical way. You do not need to have special equipment, just need to mix it together and heat it, and you'll be able to get a gold ore in a short amount of time. One day you can process up to a few kg of gold, which is considered very good for this group of poverty people. But these growing activities all around the world, you can see, they are actually have a very large numbers of miners in a different part of the world. So that is why all these activities are very dangerous, because when they use elemental mercury to extract the ore, it means they are releasing the pure elemental mercury into the atmosphere. As you can see from my right-hand side of the screen, artisanal and small-scale gold mining, they use elemental mercury into extracting the ores. Industrials will also contribute the elemental mercury into the environment, and all this will eventually contribute to a high amount of mercury, and the mercury will be drifted miles away and eventually deposit onto the soil. And when it deposits onto the soil, this soil are used to grow our vegetables, our food. And not only that, these industries, they will also discharge all the mercury into the water bodies, and the water bodies will go into our seafood. So when we consume the seafood here, we actually acquire the mercury by eating all the seafood that is contaminated with mercury. No matter what seafood that you are eating today, tuna, salmon, lobster, every one of them will have certain amount of mercury. The bigger the fish, the higher the amount of mercury in it. Because when the mercury is in the water, it will be ingested by plankton. And plankton, they have a special mechanism to convert mercury into elemental mercury. And it will actually bioaccumulate into this organism, become organic mercury, and it will go up along the food chain, and human, us, being the top at the food chain, will eat the fish, and that's why we also have the highest amount of mercury among the ecosystem. So that is why Nippon Instruments Corporation, we have been dedicating more than 40 years of our efforts, our focus into making an accurate mercury analyzer, because since young, the Japanese already know the danger of mercury, and they do not want this to happen to anyone in the world. So in Nippon Instruments Corporation, we have a series of solutions for mercury analysis, and it depends on what are the samples that you have. We have different solutions for you. So today, understand that you need to know more about MA-3 Solo. So we will be focusing on this system, which is what we call MA-3 Solo Direct Mercury Analyzer. So before I go into in details, do you need a short break, or can I continue? All right, so for this direct mercury analyzer, MA-3 Solo, as you can see here, there are a few photos here representing different kind of samples that you might encounter in your laboratory. And MA-3 Solo can handle all kind of samples that is shown here, from coal, blood, urine, wastewater, food, medicine, crude oil, all can be done by MA-3 Solo. But before we know the technique of MA-3 Solo, let us also understand very briefly about the existing mercury analysis technique and also its challenges. Because mercury analysis is not something new. that just happened last year. It is something that is very established by this traditional method. In this traditional method, when we receive samples, for example, fish or seafood or soil or water, what we do the next is we do a sample pre-treatment. This sample pre-treatment is to release all form of mercury into elemental mercury for detection. So this total mercury will be detected by an established technique like cold vapor AAS or cold vapor AFS. But this sample pre-treatment is needed to actually break down all the different species of mercury here. In all our samples, normally there is 3 types of mercury. First, elemental mercury. Second, mercury 2+, and the third will be organic mercury. All right. So elemental mercury will be readily detected by cold vapor AAS, but mercury 2+ and organic mercury needs to be converted into elemental mercury first, because cold vapor AAS and cold vapor AFS only measure the elemental state of the analyte. So that is why Hg2+ needs to be converted to Hg0 by this process called reducing vaporization. Reducing vaporization is a long and challenging method to convert the solid sample into liquid, and also to make sure all the mercury in liquid are converted into elemental mercury. So these are some of the steps that I summarize. First of all, we need to have a concentrated acids to dissolve the samples, and we also need to have oxidizing agent to release the organic mercury. And last, we need the reducing agent to convert Hg2+ into Hg0 here. So the choice of reducing agents, some of you all might be very familiar with sodium borohydride, and some might be very familiar to stannous chloride. Both actually serve the same purpose, but in the established technique, normally it is used stannous chloride. But these sample pre-treatment, they are very tedious, because as you can see in all these pictures here, these sample pre-treatment, they need to have this technician to be in the lab all the time, and they need to face acidic fumes. They need to go through the heating process for a long amount of time. And not only that, these sample pre-treatment process, they are very costly, because we need to use a high purity of acids or oxidants, and you need a dedicated set of glassware in order to make this analysis accurate. Not only that, different sample, you need different kind of SOP procedure to digest the sample. For example, water, you need a different set of acids and oxidants. For example, food, you need a different set of acids and oxidants as well. So that is why this whole process are very tedious, time-consuming, and labor-intensive. While we use so many chemicals, generate waste is for sure. Hazardous waste will be generated, and when we have hazardous waste, that means we need a proper waste disposal, and that will also cost money and also waste of resources. But after all this process, if let's say we can get accurate result, then it will be worthwhile. But most of the time, mercury analysis after all the sample pre-treatment process, the result will actually be less than accurate. It will be quite inaccurate due to the loss of analytes throughout the process, and also the it might be have a positive bias from due to the reagents mercury background that contributing to the sample, and also human error tends to happen. So that is why the time that we spend in these sample preparations and also the errors that generated during this sample processing are actually the highest percentage from this whole mercury analysis. To avoid that to happen, that is why we have a direct thermal decomposition mercury analyzer by MA-3 Solo. Solo here means manual single entry. So MA-3 Solo basically is one of my favorite. I personally like this system very well because it is very small. The footprint is only just an A3 size paper, and it can use in anywhere in the laboratory because you do not need any gas line or gas piping. And of course, it is good for a researcher that always have different kind of projects and to analyze different kind of samples in their laboratory. But what is direct thermal decomposition? So for this mercury analysis by thermal decomposition, it means direct combustion. When we talk about direct combustion, it means heat. So we are using heat by managing its temperature to atomize compounds into its elemental state. Like what we discussed just now, CVAS and also CVAFS can only detect elemental state. So that is why we need to have a method to convert everything into elemental state first. So the operating principle of MA-3 Solo is very simple. Basically, the first step will be thermal decomposition, using heat to decompose sample to release mercury. Second step will be gold amalgamations. Gold amalgamations is a technique to trap the mercury released from the sample. And the third will be a cold vapor AAS detection based on the Beer-Lambert's law. When we receive samples, we will actually give it heat and also room air to actually do the direct combustions. And when we do the direct combustions, all different forms of mercury will come out. So to convert all the mercury into elemental mercury, it will be converted by the catalyst that is patented by NIC. So after we convert all the elemental mercury, we need to trap the elemental mercury properly. This is crucial for a good recovery and also a reproducible result. And the trapping technique is actually the know-how of NIC after these 40 years of dedications and also efforts. The trapping technique, we are making use of the concept of gold amalgamation here. And what we understand is gold and mercury, they are best friends forever. So whenever there is gold, there will be mercury. So that is why we are actually using the concept on this amalgamation, which is an alloying process between these two metals that is also widely used in the gold mining to extract their ores until today. And in our system, we are using this concept to do a selective trapping. So if you can see here, this is the pictures where our samples will undergo a direct combustion. And when we undergo a direct combustion, mercury will be released. But in our sample, we also have a lot of other things as well. Like for example, a carbon-based compound, sulfur-based compound, and nitrogen-based compound, and all the other interference that tends to interference. Only mercury will be trapped here. This is the gold amalgamation trap, and only mercury will be trapped here, and all the impurities will go away. After all the impurities go away, the mercury will be released into the detector for detection, which is making use of Beer-Lambert's law. Basically, AAS is a technique where the free gaseous atoms absorb electromagnetic radiation at the specific wavelength. For mercury, it's a 253.7 nanometer to produce a measurable signal. And this absorption signal is proportional to the concentration of the analytes here. So as you can see here, this is a MA-3 Solo flow diagram. It looks a bit complicated at first, but do not worry, it's actually very easy. If you look at here, this is where you put the samples in. This is our sample board. Okay, so our samples, you do not need to digest anything. You just need to blend it properly. If let's say it is a solid, make sure it is homogeneous, grind it properly, and weigh about 50 milligram or 100 milligram into the sample board and put it in here. And here is where the direct thermal decomposition will happen. Mercury will be released, and the catalyst here will convert all the mercury into elemental mercury. And elemental mercury at such high temperature will become vapor form. The elemental mercury will be trapped in this collector where the gold amalgamation will happen here. And when all the mercuries are trapped, impurities will go away to the waste filter here. And after that, mercury will be released again and go to the cell, the CVAS, for detection. And the whole process here are automated by MA-3 Solo. So what you need to do is make sure the samples are in, select the correct method, and press start. That is all. Some of the key features of MA-3 Solo Direct Mercury Analyzer here is that MA-3 Solo, of course, is a direct combustion technique mercury analyzer. And the amazing thing is that it can handle both solid, gaseous, and also liquid matrices with the right accessories. The analysis range is also very wide. You can go up to 10,000 nanogram of mercury. The size of it is very compact, only 13 kg, and the footprint is about A3 size. No gas is required to operate the system because this mercury analyzer, they run on purified room air. And the analysis is very quick. You can obtain the accurate result from within 5 to 12 minutes, depending on your samples. So no waste will be generated because we are not using any chemicals here. And the operational cost will be lower compared to the traditional methods. Optional upgrade is available for special aqueous samples and also gaseous matrices. Not to mention, also this MA-3 Solo is highly versatile because it can handle different kind of samples. And a lot of time, my customers, they like to ask me, Mei Shin, so if I have a soil sample and the next thing that I want to analyze is a blood sample, can I do that? Yes, of course, absolutely yes, because it's the same sample matrix independent. As long as you choose the right method, which is already built in the analyzer, you can have different samples analysis on the same day itself. And also the next questions that customer always worried about is the calibration. Because what I understand is sometimes in different instruments, different samples, they need to have a different kind of calibration standards. But in our mercury analyzer, no matter it's an organic mercury that you injected in or inorganic mercury standard that you injected in, both they will eventually be converted into elemental mercury and the peak will be exactly the same. So we only use one kind of liquid mercury standards, which is the inorganic one, to do our calibration, and you can run all kinds of samples with that. But this direct combustion technique, they have some limitation, which is comes to this very clean aqueous matrices. For industrial waste effluent, for wastewater, you can use direct combustion technique. That will be fine, no problem, because the mercury amount are quite substantial. But when it comes to these aqueous matrix like drinking water, river water, these are normally very clean water samples. Mercury level is in an ultra trace level. And because in our direct combustion technique, typically we suggest do not inject more than 200 microliter of liquid samples. So it will cause the detection limit to be not very ideal for these clean water samples. So when we come to these aqueous matrices, MA-3 Solo offer an optional unit, which is an aqua kit. Aqua kit basically is an option that you can upgrade when you buy the system or in the future to analyze these clean water samples. As you can see the picture here, this is MA-3 Solo and this is aqua kit attachment. So what we do here is this aqua kit attachment will be good when you need to use for clean water samples. Why do we need to separate these two, right? So in most of the water samples, these are the steps that you need to do. That means from having the concentrated acids to digest the samples, and also the oxidants to release the organic compounds of mercury, and finally the reduction step and to be detected by the cold vapor AS. This is the traditional method of water analysis for mercury. But this process, user has to do it manually, and aqua kit will be able to help in this reduction step, where we will put in the reductants and reduce all the inorganic mercury into elemental mercury. The operating principle is very simple. You have two impingers here. This first impinger is where we put our reagents and also samples. For example, clean water samples in 20 ml and also sulfuric acid 50%, followed by 10% of stainless chloride. So this 10% stainless chloride will do the reduction to convert all mercury into elemental mercury. And the exhaust port of MA-3 Solo will provide the mercury-free air to purge the mercury here. The mercury vapor will come out and go to the mercury collector tube here. Mercury collector tube will keep all the elemental mercury, and this mercury collector tube will be placed into the MA-3 Solo for a direct mercury measurement. So the measurement range for this aqua kit, you can go down to 5 ppt, which is good enough for most of the water samples requirement. And it's actually an optional attachment, so it does not involve any software modifications, so you can actually buy it in the future when you need it. The next attachment that we available with this MA-3 Solo will be the gas analysis attachment. We are also making use of the mercury collector tube here, where we use the mercury collector tube to do sampling on site. So you bring a pump along and also this mercury collector tube, and you do sampling on site, come back, you place the mercury collector tube onto this poker arm, and then the whole thing will go in for a direct mercury measurement as well. So after the measurement, these tubes are reusable. And this mercury collector tube are basically a gold-coated chromosome inside. So the trapping of mercury is also very selective, and it's also much better compared to other collector tube, which is a carbon-based collector tube. Because carbon-based collector tube, as we know, carbon absorbs most of the thing. So that is why it might not be as selective. And this mercury collector tube, because it is gold chromosome, it only traps mercury. So your result will be much more accurate. And talking about the performance of a MA-3 Solo, the first thing that we analyze, evaluate a mercury analyzer is talking about the linearity of it. So the linearity of this measurement range up to 100 nanogram, we can get a really good R-square value, as you can see here, and the maximum deviation is only 2.4% under the low mode. So basically there's two modes under MA-3 Solo, low mode and also high mode. So for low mode, up to 100 nanogram, you can get extremely good linearity with maximum deviation of 2.4%. And the LOQ and LOD is about 6.9 picogram and 23 picogram for LOQ. When it comes to high mode, you can have linearity up to 1000 nanogram with the maximum deviation of 3.3% here. So in this MA-3 Solo, we can also analyze our samples up to 10,000 nanogram. But when we go to 10,000 nanogram, we are using a calibration of a cubic calibration curve. So cubic calibration curve is where we do our calibrations, and after that we will actually verify it, and we can get regressions with the R-square value of 0.9999, maximum deviation of 1.6%, which is extremely good for direct mercury analyzer, and I would say it is very hard to be achieved by a traditional method of mercury analysis. The next thing that we evaluate the analyzer will be precision. Precision is also the consistency of reading. So the detection limit under this low mode of the MA-3 Solo will be 0.01 nanogram. So when we check about 100 nanogram of mercury standards, we can achieve a CV of 0.4%. CV means coefficient variation. Some also will refer it as relative standard deviation. So we can achieve as low as 0.4% here. When it comes to 0.1 nanogram, 2.9 CV can be achieved. When it comes to 0.05 nanogram, which is very near to the detection limit, the CV is still less than 10%, 4.6 here, which is also extremely good for most of the samples that you need to analyze in the laboratory. After the precision, the next thing that we evaluate system will be the accuracy. Accuracy test basically is to check how close is the reading to the true value of the assigned sample. That is why we always run the accuracy test with the certified reference material. In this test, we are using altogether 6 types of certified reference material, and this is the certified value here. Normally, certified value, they'll give you a range because to cater different kind of techniques in the lab. And this is the average sample size that we use, the replicates that we do, and this is the average measured value here. So for example, lobster. I like lobster. Okay, so let's look at lobster. So lobster here, the certified value is 0.2 ppm to 0.3 ppm. Sample size, we use about 50 to 51 milligram, and we do 3 replicates. And the average certified measured value here is 0.29 ppm, which is at the middle of the certified range. And the CV after 3 replicates is less than 1%, which is, I would say, extremely good for solid samples, because if you have to go through a traditional methods of digesting the sample and go through all the acids and oxidants, it is nearly impossible to achieve a CV of less than 1%. So that is how accurate our MA-3 solo direct mercury analyzer is. And of course, my colleagues also analyze some unknown samples here. We also analyze some whale meat, and this is the sample size that we use. These are the replicates that we do. And average value is about 0.7 ppm in the whale meat that we analyze. And we can achieve CV less than 10%. And not only that, we also analyze some tea leaf in different countries. I'm not sure what countries are that. Sorry, I can't tell you. But this tea leaf, to our surprise, actually, they also have some substantial amount of mercury in it. So, for example, tea leaf 1 from country A, I hope it's not America, but country A tea leaf, we have about 3 ppb of mercury, which is equivalent to 3000 ppt. So, a lot of people will think that our environment is safe. I'm not sure about your place, but in my country, a lot of researchers, they will think that a lot of environment are safe. Tea leaf are safe, fish are safe, vegetables are safe, you know, but they have not really tried to analyze it before. So this tea leaf is also one of the surprise that we have, that we discover a substantial amount of mercury. And recently, I have a soil project with a researcher in Malaysia, and he always thought that the soil is quite safe, but you will see the result later that I'll share with you. The soil actually have quite a high amount of mercury. So these are the summary of MA-3 solo specifications. It can handle 3 kinds of samples: solid, liquid, and gaseous. It's a direct thermal decomposition, gold amalgamation, cool vapor AAS technique. Detection limit down to 0.01 nanogram, and maximum range can go up to 10,000. Measuring time per sample is about 5 to 12 minutes depending on what type of sample, and you no need to have a special gas, just normal ambient air. And the weight of this system is only about 13 kg and it runs on a normal electricity. So when it comes to the application, there are 2 applications that I'd like to share with you today, which is applications in biological samples. So one of the more accurate way to assess the mercury level in our body will be taking the blood samples. So for blood samples, if you were to digest, probably a lot of mercury will lost during this process. So when we use this direct combustion technique, we can take about 100 microliter of blood samples, so you don't need to take a lot from the patients, and you run about 5 replicates, and you can get average concentrations of 25 ppb, and with a CV of less than 5%. After that, we also do some check standards which is a QC after the measurement, and we can get 100% of recovery to ensure the systems are still in good conditions. It means this MA-3 solo series are good for this biological sample analysis. And the next thing is actually my project with Malaysia researcher to analyze some soil samples in Malaysia. So we go and do some sampling in some part of Malaysia, and we collect some soil samples for plantation. So this researcher, actually, they are from a multinational company. They have a lot of plantations, and they always thought that the soil sample are safe. But to our surprise, we take a soil sample from area A, and the average sample size is about 50 to 52 milligram. We do a 10 runs, 10 replicates, just to make sure it is accurate and it is precise. And you can see there is about 85 ppb of a soil in this particular area. And this is the soil for plantation. That means the plants that is growing on this area are drawing the nutrients from the soil and also mercury. And these plantations will eventually become our food. So it is very dangerous because we are exposed to mercury at a long time without us knowing anything. So when the researcher saw this result, he was shocked, and he told me that, you know what, we need to start analyzing mercury. So that is why mercury analysis is important. If you never analyze, you will never know. And these results are achieved by MA-3 solo here. And the calibration, we can get about R-square value of 1, which is extremely good for all type of analysis. So if you would like to know more about the applications, we can also chat later after this. And the next one that will be the last part of my presentation is about the Minamata disease story that I would like to share with you. Before I go into this part of the story, I will need another 10 to 15 minutes more. Do you want me to answer any question first, or would you want me to finish it first? Pak Risa, can I continue?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So I will continue first.
Yeah.
So the last part of, yes, the last part of my presentation today will be the Minamata disease story. So personally, I am very convicted in this mercury analysis because of a small story here. Last time when I just graduated from my university, I have a lot of scars on my face. So when I have a lot of scars on my face, I try to use some cosmetic cream to remove the scars. So I bought a cream. After 2-3 weeks of using it, then my customer tell me that, Mei Shin, kamu terlihat sangat cantik. And I was shocked. So I feel very happy, and I continue using it, the cream. And that time, my principal was NIC, Nippon Instruments, and my principal told me about all the mercury story all around the world. One of the story is that mercury are very widely used in cosmetic to remove scars. So when I heard, and I was shocked, like, oh my God, maybe my cosmetic have a lot of mercury. So there is a chance that I get to use MA mercury analyzer from NIC, and I check my cosmetic sample. And the cosmetic sample has very, very, very high amount of mercury. And that is why kamu terlihat sangat cantik. That is why I become prettier within a few weeks. But it is not a good thing. So that is also why myself have a relatively high amount of mercury compared to normal people. In Malaysia, people normally have 0.5 ppm to 1 ppm of mercury, but I have about 4 ppm in my hair samples. So that is why from there onwards, I would like to share these stories with the people around me. So today, when you attend this webinar, no matter you are doing mercury analysis or not, you are doing any other heavy metal analysis, it's fine. Even if you are not doing analysis, it's fine. But share this message with your friends and family that mercury is very dangerous. You will know why with the slides coming up. So Minamata disease happened in this place called Minamata City. Minamata City is a beautiful place and it's nearby this Minamata Bay. So a lot of people actually, they catch a lot of this seafood. They are fishermen. So the main consumption of protein is seafood. So it is once called the source of life because it provides so many resources to the local community there. But in the 1950s, it becomes the death flow. The death flow is because so many people are dying that time, but no people know exactly why. And this death flow eventually is due to Minamata disease, which is also considered a strange disease, penyakit pelik that time. So the death flows quietly because a lot of people are dying quietly and no people know why. And in 1956, a 5-year-old girl was examined in the hospital with different very weird symptoms. For example, difficult in walking, difficult in speaking, and also convulsions keep on happening to her. And this is an example of a Minamata disease patient where they barely can survive on their own. They always need people around them to take care of them until they passed away. So this is the situation back in Minamata village. So as you see here, the main activities will be fishing. They are doing sardine fishing here, always going out to the sea, and the main meal will be all the seafoods that they can capture. But in 1908, Chiso Coorporation was established and completed in Minamata village. And this Chiso Coorporation, their main role is to support the Japanese economy that time. And they produce a lot of raw mats for plastic because when the Industrial Revolution happens, plastic are a necessity even until today. So the raw mat to do a plastic is acetaldehyde, but the byproduct is methyl mercury. That time, no people know much about the danger of mercury poisoning, so no one really do wastewater treatment. And this Chiso Corporation, this is their factories now. They are still around, and these are the factories that discharge directly to this Hyakken district. This is the place where they discharge, exactly this place. They discharge the methyl mercury waste directly into this water system. And a lot of local community, they can find a very strange looking seafood around this place. For example, purple color crab. But because all these local community, they are not educated, they don't have the knowledge, so they thought purple crab, it's normal, you know, probably it's from the deep sea, so they'll just consume it as usual. So the first death happened is in 1956 March, and in 1959, actually Kumamoto University, it's a very small university back then, that they try to share with the public that it is due to the mercury poisoning by the Chiso corporations. But this theory, a lot of people, they don't like, especially by the Chiso. They say, no, it's not because of us. It's maybe it's something else, okay? So before the first people died in Minamata village, actually it affects the cats in the local community. Cats, kucing. So the kucing, they cannot walk properly. And these cats, they always, because they have 4 limbs, so when they walk, they always walk in a very strange pattern. So the local community thought it is just the cat being funny, but it is not actually. After the cats, it affects the birds. Whenever the birds fall on the floor, they couldn't move anymore. And not only the birds, it also has a lot of dead floating fishes around the Minamata Bay. But that time, really no people know why. And later, Tokyo Institute of Technology, they say that it's amine poisoning. And Tokyo is a big city, big university. A lot of people will believe what they say, but it is not true. And this is also why the actions taken by the government was also delayed, because a lot of fake news, wrong information. And finally, in 1963, Kumamoto University made a formal announcement saying that the Minamata disease is caused by the methyl mercury compound, and it is from Chiso Coorporation. So that is why Chiso Coorporation still exists today, not because they are manufacturing anything, they still exist today to compensate all the Minamata victims. So the impact of Minamata disease, or any other disease are always very great. In today's world, we have COVID-19. Whenever there is a COVID-19 patients, we are very afraid. We want to be far away from them to have social distancing. But in Minamata disease that time, not much education going on, not distancing is going on, only discrimination. Whenever there is a suspected victim coming out from the house, the villagers, they will stone them, they will throw them with stones so that they don't come out from their house, because that time they do not know what happened. And of course, there is a lot of health and mental pressure. Just like during our lockdown in our respective country, cannot go anywhere. It's also pressure for our normal life. And the main problems that is happening in Minamata village is the economy deterioration. Because Minamata Bay is famous in providing a lot of seafood to the villages nearby. So when the Minamata disease happened, they stopped buying fish from Minamata. So no one wants the fish from Minamata, and all the economy actually will go down. So the people become poor and become even more stressful and even more tensed up. So the unity and the peace in the community has lost, totally lost. People are always at the verge of fighting, arguing, and it's not a good place to live with that time. So how does mercury goes into our body is when from our consumption of seafood. But after consumption of seafood, what happened? What mercury is going to do in our body? So this is a very important part of the message, because mercury is very, very sneaky. Sneaky is in the way that if you can see here, this is methyl mercury compound. And methyl mercury compound will look for amino acids in our body. Amino acids, as you know, is very essential in our body for building up protein and a lot of things. Basically, it's a basic building block in our life. So cysteine is one of the amino acids, and methyl mercury will look for cysteine and bind to it and become this fake amino acid. This fake amino acid is very similar to this methionine. And you can see here, methionine is also another essential amino acids in our body. But these two, they look almost the same, almost the same. Only mercury compound here and no mercury compound here. But our brain is not designed to recognize these differences. We are not evolved to recognize these differences. So that is why this fake amino acid, they will go into our brain. And this is especially dangerous for pregnant lady. So today, if any participants here are pregnant, or any of your wife and is pregnant, you have to be aware the consumption of seafood, because if let's say the seafood is coming from a polluted area, the mercury entering the fetus is very high, because there is a placental membrane that is supposed to block the toxic substance. But because they cannot recognize the fake amino acid, it will enter the baby. And this is also why it causes fetal Minamata disease patient. There is two types of Minamata disease here. One is for the adult, one is the baby. When it occurs to the baby, we say that it is fetal Minamata disease. This is a visitors. This is a storyteller that I've visited when I was in Minamata Museum. Her name is Ueno-san. Ueno-san lost her husband and her baby girl Ryoko when her baby girl was only 2 years old. These Ueno-san and her husband, they are actually the workers in Chiso Corporation. That time they live in Minamata, and they eat and drink whatever that they have from Minamata. So this Ueno-san, actually, he consumed a lot of seafood because it is protein. When a lady is pregnant, they always take in a lot of protein for their baby. But that is also why this baby died, because the baby take up all the mercury from the mother. And that is why the mother survived until today. And Ueno-san vision and mission is to be the storyteller in the museum every day, so that he can share with the visitors about her stories, even though it is very saddening for her, so that this Minamata disease will not happen in other country again. Another fetal Minamata disease patient, whenever there is a conference or a treaty going on, she will share her own testimony, because her situation is getting worse by worse every year. If let's say this year she can walk, next year she couldn't walk or talk anymore. But she is still fighting to share her testimony, so that this Minamata disease can stop and won't happen in other country again. So this is her motto: no more Minamata. Because this disease is not over yet, there are still a lot of people suffering and struggling from this pollution. So we must take precautions by monitoring and analyzing our sample properly. And I have this honor to visit National Institute for Minamata Disease 2 years ago. And NIMD is actually a very established, world-renowned institute for mercury analysis. And our company, Nippon Instruments Corporation, has been working very closely with these researchers to come up with a better analyzers and better applications to mercury analysis, to support the mercury analysis all around the world. Last but not least, this is the message that I would like to share from Ueno-san when I visited her. And she said, we have to prevent such disastrous pollution as Minamata disease from happening again. I'm telling people with my thoughts and feelings. What I want to ask you is to study about Minamata disease with us, understanding the importance of connecting to others, and to take the lessons of Minamata disease into the future. Take the lessons of Minamata disease, not Minamata disease, into the future, because we could not let the unethical corporations or selfish authority to place the economy more than our human health, because eventually it will cause a disaster that no one will be able to control. So this is my last message today, and thank you very much for listening. And I would like to know if you have any questions, or if I have any parts that I'm not clear in my presentations today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mei Shin. Wonderful presentations about MA-3 Solo.
Thank you.
But I mean, Solo is names city, but Solo is a manual single entry, right?
Yes, yes.
Because 11 Maret University is Solo City.
I see.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ms. Mei Shin. There are several questions from participants.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the one question from Prof. Ari Ramlan.
All right.
Okay. So how to do sample preparations from soil using this apparatus?
How to do a soil sample preparations using this apparatus? Am I right? Okay. For this mercury analysis, in this direct Mercury Analyzer MA-3 Solo, the sample preparations are very easy. Basically, when you have soil samples, what you need to do is to grind the soil sample, because the homogeneity is very important when it comes to direct Mercury Analyzer. So that is why the sample preparations that you need to do is only grinding. Make sure that it is homogeneous enough. That is all. And after that, we can start with a sample size of 20 milligram or 30 milligram, put into a sample boat and press start. That's all. So I hope I can, I have answers your questions. Do you think you need further information on that, Prof?
Hello, Mei Shin, I'm Ari Ramalan. One thing regarding about tea leaf, yeah, tea leaf
Yes.
is
Yes.
very dangerous if we consume, tea leaf, and then the tea leaf content of mercury, it will be very dangerous. It look like Minamata or this disease here.
Yes.
So once again, regarding about the the tea leaf, sample preparation for tea leaf, is it similar? We just grind it and then put on the boat and then just turn about this, turn the equipment apparatus.
Yes, exactly, Prof. Ari.
Yeah.
So for tea leaf, you can get a suitable grinder. Basically, you need to have a suitable grinder because tea leaf is in a leaf form. So you grind it as long as it is homogeneous enough. You can wait about 10 or 20 milligrams. Start with small sample size first and go into the sample boat. If let's say after the small sample size and the mercury concentration is not very high, then you can continue with 100 milligram or 200 milligram. It's okay.
So it means for the fresh tea leaf and the dry tea leaf is similar.
Yes.
Because of, okay, similar.
Yes.
The water content, it will not influence the measurement.
Okay. The water content will not influence the measurement because, of course, when you have this fresh tea leaf and also the dry tea leaf, the mercury concentration might be different because one, they have the moisture, and some of the moisture they might carry the mercury compounds, and the dry tea leaf they don't have the moisture. When you don't have the moisture, then you don't have the mercury from the moisture. So the results might be different because they are two different kind of samples. So it is okay to analyze directly.
Okay, and then one more regarding about the contamination of the content of mercury in our hair.
All right.
Yeah. Can you tell me regarding about, because it is very dangerous as well.
You mean the concentration of mercury in my hair?
Yeah, and our hair. The minimum that we can detect using this apparatus.
Okay, the typical detection for MA-3 Solo, you can go down to about 100 ppt, 100 to 200 ppt, part per trillion. So for hair samples, normally it's more than enough to detect because most of our hair samples, we have a mercury level of at least 0.5, 0.2 ppm. So since our MA-3 Solo detection limit is 100 ppt.
Okay, last time, a long time ago, I got, the student, postgraduate student, he did a research regarding about the contamination of the cattle in the final disposal site, Hello?
Yes.
Yes, and then he investigate regarding about, the heavy metal in the blood, and then in the liver and other part of the body of the cattle. Maybe can you tell me regarding about, some standard that we can get the accurate measurement using this equipment?
When you analyze different part of the organs of animals, right, Prof. Ari? So most important thing is that part of the organ, it must be blended well, because especially these parts like liver or kidney, these are the parts where all the toxic substances will end up at. So when you especially comes to analyzing all these body organs, these are the organs that you need to pay attention, because if let's say the animals is really being contaminated heavily with heavy metal, then probably the mercury level is very, very high. So when you analyze this kind of samples, first thing is we have to blend it and to make sure it is homogenized. And the second thing is we always start with very, very, very small amount of samples. If let's say your analytical balance can weigh down to 10 milligram or 5 milligram, you can actually weigh as low as possible. Or another way is actually to do a spot test. Spot test, that means beat roughly and put it on the board and try to see if let's say the sample give you any high results or not. Because I have experience where there is this student in Malaysia. She committed suicide actually by drinking mercury. So when this body go for autopsy and also forensic, one of the government customer is actually using our MA direct mercury analyzer to check the mercury level. And of course, because since she is ingesting mercury, it will actually cause the organ to have a very high amount of mercury. So because the lab technician, she is not very aware of the case, so she directly weighed 100 milligram. So it contaminates the system because the mercury is in percentage level. So all these analyzers, they are supposed to meant for contaminant. They are not meant for adulterant. Adulterant is something that we purposely add in or purposely ingesting it. So that is why it contaminates the analyzer. So the best practice when you analyze the organs, especially liver or kidney, good thing is you do a spot test first. Start with a very, very little amount of samples. You don't need to weigh it, just put a little bit on the sample board and click start and run as usual, and you will know whether the mercury amount is in high or low. And then only we decide how much mercury samples that we should weigh to analyze properly.
Thank you very much, Mak Risan. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Yeah, in the future maybe I would like to see you in Thailand. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Ari. Okay, the next question from Dwi Maya Azwir in Indonesian language. I think it's okay, yeah, Miss Mei Shin.
Yes.
In Indonesia.
Yes. Pak Risa, can you help me to translate?
Okay. Miss Dwi Maya Azwir.
Battery, please charge.
Okay. She already worked with Mercury analyzers from in NIC.
All right.
Yeah. So he already analyzes of blood samples. Is it similar with water samples?
Is it similar with water samples? Do you mean the way to analyze blood samples? Is it similar with analyze water samples?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. For blood samples, it's a bit different because blood samples and urine samples, they are a bit sticky. You know, it's a bit viscous. So that is why the way that we analyze blood samples will be slightly different. So for example, since you use NIC mercury analyzer before, I'm sure you're familiar with the sample board. So when you have the sample board, for water samples, what we do is we pipette the water samples onto the sample board and we analyze. So you set 200 microliter or 100 microliter from the pipette and you put it into the sample board and analyze. But for blood and urine samples, they are different. So we need to use a gravimetric method. So what you do is you can put the both on analytical balance, and after that you tear it, and after that you take the blood samples and to measure it by weight, so that you are really putting it 100 milligram or 100 microliter of these blood samples onto it. Because when we just use the pipette, it might not be accurately 100 microliter, because some of the blood samples will still be stuck on the pipette tips. So that is why you cannot get 100 microliter, probably it's only 90 or 92. Then your concentration will be affected. So the best way to do biological sample is to weigh the sample by using a gravimetric method. And after that, you can choose a blood and urine method in the Mercury Analyzer and click start. And then you can have a very accurate result. Hope I have answered your questions. Do you have any other questions? And we analyze Mercury from SP3D. Okay, I saw a latest question here from Kunyadi Jufri. Sorry if I can't pronounce your name correctly. What I understand here, you were asking analyzing Mercury SP3D Mercury Analyzer on a 20 degrees Celsius room temperature. That's safe or not? Basically, SP3D is quite a robust Mercury Analyzer, and it can work very well in most of the room temperatures. 20 degrees Celsius is not too cold. It should be fine. It shouldn't have any problems. I saw questions by Rahmat Hidayat. Kemana?
Yeah.
Kemana?
Rahmat Hidayat. Okay. When we use Mercury analyzing, yeah, after ionization process and also amalgam, and we can see from detector. Yeah. After
Right.
that, mercury yeah, go out free air and atmosphere. This is a new pollutant.
Yes, I understand Mr. Rahmat's concern. So if you can see here, this is actually the MA-3 solar flow diagram. So when our samples comes in here, it goes through the direct combustions and collect in our collector, and the mercury will go to the detector for detection. And after the detection, the mercury will be transferred to this carbon filter here. This carbon filter, it will trap all the impurities as well as mercury after the measurement, so that whatever that is coming out from here, the exhaust is clean air, mercury-free air. So you do not need to worry, because Japanese, they place a lot of importance in the safety of the instruments, so they will not release the new pollutants into the atmosphere. Hope I have answered your questions, Mr. Rahman.
Okay. So yeah, free impurity, right?
Yes, free of impurities, Pak Risa.
Okay, thank you. Oke, silakan Bapak dan Ibu kalau ada yang ingin ditanyakan. Oke, from Mr. Kurniadi. I think Miss Shin can read it.
Yeah, just now managed to mention a bit on Mr. Kunyadi's questions. Basically, SP3D is quite robust to be used in most of the situation. 20 degrees Celsius is just a normal aircon condition, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be fine for SP3D, Mr. Kunyadi.
Mas Kurniadi. Okay, Miss Mei Shin.
Yes.
Okay, I have questions.
Yes.
Because Mercury Analysis can use solid, gas, and liquid sample.
Yes.
So if I have solid sample, so
Yes.
you said combustions directly.
Yes.
So what temperature?
What temperature?
Yeah, what temperature? Yeah.
Okay, solid samples, so we have a few different methods to do the solid samples, okay, but depends on your samples. Generally, during the first heating temperature, the system can go up to 850 degrees Celsius for this mercury analyzer. So it is good enough to release all the mercury, because the boiling point of mercury is 357 degrees Celsius. So all the mercury can be released out and to be trapped in our collector. So the maximum temperature that it will go is 850 Pak Rizal.
Thank you. Okay, the next question from Mr. Prabang. Can you read it?
Yes.
Okay.
How to valuation of mercury pollutants based on environmental damage or health degradation with economic perspective? Sorry, I can't really understand the questions from Mr. Prabang. Do you mean how does the mercury affect the environment and also the health with the economy perspective?
Pak Prabang bisa diperjelas? Silakan mic-nya dinyalakan.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, Miss Mei Shin.
Selamat pagi.
I think the evaluation of mercury pollution, how to have the impact, environmental damage, you have the experiences to calculate and to analyze about the economic perspective based on your research about in the economic perspective. Thank you.
I see, Mr. Prabang. I don't have exact calculation on how much it affects on the economy, but it definitely will affect the economy directly. The one very good example that we can look at is on Minamata. When it happens that time, because there is no knowledge about the mercury poisoning, not only it damaged the environment, it damaged the health of the local community, and there is no economy, no income for the local community in Minamata. So that is why the entire income source has been cut directly without any preparations. And in today's world, of course, we have one country does not rely on just one thing anymore. One country relies on a lot of things. One local community relies on a lot of things as well. So when it comes to economy perspective, it will take time to affect, but mercury being widely used in this a lot of industries, definitely it will bring certain impact into us directly. Not only environmental damage, and not only health degradations, and of course our economy as well. When it affects our environment, so a lot of activities could be stopped probably. And also when it affects the human health, a lot of workers cannot work anymore. For example, the workers in oil and gas industry. So when all these resources, human resources and environmental resources are being stopped, it will affect our economy, Mr. Pravan. I hope this gives some explanations to your questions.
Okay, okay, clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Prabang. Because it's in the case, the sample case is Minamata. Okay.
Yes.
Next questions, okay, from Mr. Rahman, because Ms. Mei Shin says about carbon filter
Yes.
to trap
Yes.
mercury.
Yes.
So I think how to replace? Is it must replace or no?
Okay, this is also good questions. A lot of our customers will concern about this one. This carbon filter, they are actually designed with a great capacity. And in MA-3 Solo, there is a GLP button that to check the conditions of the carbon filter. That means it will record how much mercury that has been absorbed onto the carbon filter. So if I'm not mistaken, the capacity of this carbon filter is 1.5 gram, which is about 1,500 milligram. So since our samples, most of them are in contaminants level, means they are in nanogram level. So it can actually last you for quite a long time. But of course, when you purchase our MA-3 Solo direct mercury analyzer, we encourage the user to perform preventive maintenance every year, at least once a year, with our local distributor. Because during the preventive maintenance, our local distributor will help you to check the situation, especially this carbon filter, to ensure that you are operating the system in a safe environment. And not only the carbon filter, there are a lot of things also our distributor will check for you, so that your system can be always at an optimum conditions to be operated. So one day the carbon filter needs to be replaced, but don't worry, the system has a record on the situation of the carbon filter. Hope I answer your questions, Mr. Rahmat.
Mr. Rahmat cukup ya. Okay, the next question. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question for Mr. Kurniadi again. Can you read it, Ms. Mason?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Marisa, I can read it.
Please.
All right. So how long the collector tube will be expired, and how to clean the sample board after analysis? Very practical questions. For this collector tube, it is recommended to run 1,000 tests. Okay, so the same thing in this MA-3 Solo features, it will actually have a counter to count the amount of tests that you have run on this collector tube. And you do not need to clean this collector tube, because after the analysis, all the mercury will be released from the collector tube and go to the detector for detections. So as long as you still can get a good calibration, good recovery, your collector tube and the combustion tube are still in good conditions. So again, like what we discussed just now, it is good to have a yearly preventive maintenance, so that sometimes when the user overlook the situation of the collector tube, our distributor will be able to let you know through the preventive maintenance, and then they will advise you how to change and also when to change this collector tube. And about the sample board analysis, these sample board, they are made of ceramic. And this ceramic is not just ceramic, this ceramic is coated with a layer of silica. So when we put our samples in, and the samples go into the system and do the analysis, after the analysis, all the samples are gone, because combustion, it will burn off everything. And then all the samples are gone, and mercury are detected and keep inside the carbon filter. So basically, your boat sample boat is considered mercury free. It's clean. Sometimes maybe your sample boat will have a little bit of color that you do not feel comfortable with, but it is fine as long as it is mercury free. So you can check by running a blank sample boat to see if there is any mercury left, and normally it won't have, and then you can start analyzing the next sample. You do not need to wash with any chemicals, unless in an exception is mercury contamination happen in your analyzer. Then we have a special procedure to teach our user on cleaning the sample boat. But in normal condition, never wash your sample boat with any chemicals, because it will damage the silica layer. And when the silica layer is damaged, it exposes the ceramic pores, because ceramics are porous, right? So when the ceramic pores are exposed, the mercury will tends to hide inside the pores, and then you will have problems in your analysis. So never wash the sample boat with any strong chemicals. The max is probably just rinse with some distilled water or high purity water, and that is considered clean already. Hope I answer your questions, Mr. Kunyadi.
Okay, MA-3 solo include automatically system. For example, say if carbon filter need replace or not, are there signs inside the system?
Yes. Let me just share the software screen with you.
Yeah.
Please give me 2 seconds.
Please.
If you can look at my screen here, this is actually the software of MA-3 Solo, where there is a GLP counter here. So this GLP counter is actually, this absorbed mercury here is to calculate the mercury absorbed on the carbon filter. And this is to calculate the lamp hours that already been on, and the air pump usage, and the combustion tube usage as well. So all, when you connect to a system, because I'm not connecting it to a system now, so when you connect to a system, all this will be written here. So you can monitor the figure here regularly, so that you know your system is in a good and safe condition, Pak Risa.
Okay, thank you. Oke, Bapak dan Ibu silahkan kalau ada yang ditanyakan.
Is there any other confusions or questions that I can help to clarify?
Ya, silakan Bapak dan Ibu. Any questions? Miss Mei Shin?
Yes.
Do you still has file to present?
Sorry, come again, Pak Risa.
Your file presentation.
Yes.
The next file or only this file?
Only this file presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh. Silakan Bapak dan Ibu. Miss Mei Shin, may I share your presentation file to all
Yes.
participants?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
I can send to Pak Risa later,
Okay.
and probably you can share with the participants.
Okay, thank you.
I have a questions from Miss Delvi Maya Azwe. She is asking what are the difference between SP3D series and MA-3, only about the reagent. Okay, so for SP3D, yes, you need to use the additive if I'm not mistaken. But in MA-3, you do not need to use this additive anymore. If let's say it is non-oil and gas or hydrocarbon samples. In MA-3, first of all, this MA-3 solar, they can also use for environmental samples and also oil and gas samples, for example, crude oil, condensate, hydrocarbon. So in this MA-3, when you analyze this oil and gas sample, you will still need to use a certain amount of additive because the hydrocarbon samples, they are very volatile. They are different from the environmental samples. So that is why the direct combustion technique concept, they are still the same. It's just that in MA-3 Solo, the concept has been improved. The detector, the optics, and the interface and the software are all improved. And at the same time, MA-3 Solo is certified under this UOP 908 reference method as well. And of course, this MA-3 Solo can use for both the environmental samples and oil and gas samples. So if let's say you have experience in using SP3D, MA-3 Solo will not be any problems for you. And of course, our distributor will provide hands-on training for you when you have a new MA-3 Solo.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question. Please, Bapak dan Ibu. Oke, Bapak dan Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Mei Shin has presented about quick and easy Mercury analysis by MA Solo. So also, Miss Mei Shin has presence from history why we will need to Mercury analysis because can be affected and also I'm a little bit worried if I'm consumes seafood.
It is okay, Pak Risa, as long as you consume it in a moderate way. If let's say, you know, everything is fish 100%, no rice, then probably that will be a problem. But if let's say you just consume it in a moderate way, everyone will be fine. Okay, but of course, the seafood should not from heavily contaminated area. Then we should be fine. I like seafood too. Even until now, I still consume fish almost every day. So that is also why I have a higher mercury compared to others also. Maybe one day, Pak Risa, if you get to have our mercury analyzer, you can try to analyze your own hair samples or nail samples also can.
Okay, thank you for your explanation. So just information for participants. MA-3 Solo, I hope the end year will come to Universitas 11 Maret. So the next future, also I need to discuss to NIC, especially Miss Mei Shin.
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Baik Bapak dan Ibu, any question?
Another thing is also Minamata disease is not as immediate as COVID-19. COVID-19, we can see the effect very fast. Within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they start to manifest the symptom, and then probably they die very fast as well. So a lot of people, they are also very concerned and also pay a lot of attention to all these kind of pandemics. For Minamata disease, yes, it is not as contagious as COVID-19, but it is something that we can always try to prevent it from happening instead of controlling it when it happens. So it is good to know. It is good to know, since we are all from science background, we can share this knowledge with people around us that is not very in touch with the scientific updates, so that they can know. And especially ladies here, if let's say you are trying to get some cosmetics or skincare, please make sure that it is registered with the Ministry of Health in your country, the FDA. You know, don't buy the random products, because it might contain very high amount of mercury, and you will end up like me last time. People are telling you, kamu terlihat sangat cantik, and then you very happy and keep using it, then it will cause problem. So these are also some of the common knowledge that you can share it with your friends, for your wife, for your female friends, and all that.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a closing statement. Okay. Okay, Bapak dan Ibu, any question? The last question. Okay, before close webinars, to all participants, please open your video. I will take your photo. Okay, yes, yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Mbak Konita foto juga ya. Okay, the next page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The last page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mei Shin,
Thank you, Parisa.
for your explanations.
Thank you.
Wonderful and valuable presentations.
Thank you.
So I think all participants can be increased knowledge about Mercury Analysis. Okay, Busan. Oke, Bapak dan Ibu, nanti ada yang mau disampaikan oleh KUPT, karena ini adalah sementara adalah the last webinar. Ya, ini mungkin nanti dari KUPT Ibu Saikti akan menyampaikan mengenai webinar sampai dengan saat ini. Silakan Ibu.
Ya, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good presentation. Thank you for Mr. Mei Shin.
Thank you.
I appreciate. Bapak, Ibu, semua peserta, terima kasih sekali atas atensinya untuk acara webinar kelima untuk pengenalan peralatan Mercury Analysis. Jadi alat ini sudah dalam tahap waktu lelang. Insya Allah mohon dukungan dari EcoSign untuk kelancarannya. Kita sebentar lagi akan alat ini akan mendarat di UPT Laboratorium Terpadu. Nanti harapannya ini semua para peserta webinar ini adalah pengguna. Kami siap untuk melayani Bapak, Ibu, dan adik-adik mahasiswa untuk memanfaatkan seoptimal mungkin peralatan ini baik untuk riset maupun untuk kegiatan pengujian. Kami di sini ada pengujian udara dan pengujian air limbah yang mungkin juga akan memanfaatkan peralatan alat ini untuk sehari-hari. Demikian salam dari kami, tim dari UPT Laboratorium Terpadu Universitas Selamat. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, terima kasih Bu Sayakti sebagai Kepala UPT Laboratorium Terpadu Universitas 11 Marmara. Again, thank you, Miss Mei Shin.
Thank you, Pak Risa.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. And also Ibu Rizka, terima kasih yang telah memfasilitasi.
Sama Pak.
Iya, sehingga acara webinar dengan presenter dari Miss Mei Shin dapat berjalan dengan lancar.
Terima kasih semua.
Iya. Sampai ketemu pada webinar selanjutnya.
Ini ada ya. Ini. Itu suara kamu, wajah kamu jelek kali.